and praying for good things. I want to talk to you about crumbs today. I could have taken a picture of my dog. I could have taken a picture of my dog because I'm going to tell you something. My dog loves crumbs, and that's all she gets. She's not a scrap-fed dog. She's never come over to my knee when I'm sitting to eat and asked me for a whole plate. She knows better. She wouldn't get a plate. She just lives hoping that somehow one little piece of her French fry will fall off the edge of a plate. And she is absolutely like can dogs be in hog's heaven? Yes. Or do dogs have to be in dog's heaven? I don't know. But it's like, I don't know if you've got grandchildren, you've had to see the movie Secret Life of Pets. We have probably watched that movie more than any movie ever in our whole lifetime. And the little dog that's in there as the star of the show, that dog opened my eyes a lot to my little dog. My dog will follow me to the door when I leave, and I'm pretty sure she feels betrayed until I come home. And when I come home, she gets a treat just because I came home. And once in a while, she will sit at her, let me how to phrase this. She will sit at her master's wife's knee, and she will futilely hope. She gets nothing from her, nothing. So most of the time she just sits at her master's knee and just longs for something to fall off that plate, which may be because I'm the messier eater, and so she knows something will come off my plate more likely than off of the master's wife's plate. And so it's a good image to have for this sermon today, because the sermon is from Matthew, the 15th chapter, and verses 25, 26, 27. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. And he answered, It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And she said, Yes, Lord, and yet even the dogs eat the crumbs. Everybody say crumbs. And yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Now, let me just make sure we're on the same page with this story. First of all, she is a Canaanite woman. The Bible specifies who she is. Jesus intimated that she was a dog. Not right for him to take what was meant for the children and give it to people like her. What were people like her? Canaanites. Cursed people. Wrong side of the track people. Low class people. Do you remember the story of Noah coming off the ark after they all got off and the animals scattered and dispersed and went everywhere? And over the next year or two, they planted crops and vineyards and got things going, and the earth was fertile. And somewhere at some point later on down the years, the Bible simply cuts to the chase and tells us that he got drunk. Noah got drunk. We don't know the situation about his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We do know that Ham did something wrong toward his dad. And then ironically, when Noah awakened from his drunk stupor, and the Bible simply says, and saw what his son had done, what Ham had done, Noah placed a curse not on Ham, but on Ham's son, Canaan. Noah cursed Canaan, the son of Ham, because Ham had sinned against his father. Noah said, Canaan shall be, and then he degraded him and put him down. He'll be a servant to his brothers. From that day, the Canaanites were worthless people. And all these hundreds of years, 3,000 years later, Jesus, the master, still looks at a Canaanite woman. The Bible has specified that she was a Canaanite. And he looks at her disdainfully and said, not right for me to give what's meant for the children of God to dogs. She goes on with her story. My daughter is severely oppressed. A demon may be tormenting her. Something's horribly wrong with her. Nobody can fix her. Please, I need your help. And the disciples even came to him. This is not the kind of person we want hanging around us. Send her away. That's what they said. Get her away. I went to a seminar when I was a young first pastor. Founded my first church in 1973. And sometime that year I went to a seminar for young ministers. Church building tips, how to build a church, how to establish one, how to get it going. I went after, a little too late for me, I'd already started. One of the sessions in that seminar, they said, you've got to, I meant to buy another one of these this week and I forgot. This one's shortened out. But at this training seminar, they said, you've got to find the kind of people who are church builders. Some people just church users. But to build a church, you've got to find the quality of people that can be church builders. Well, what did I know? I was a young man. I was there to get training. I came back looking for church builders. I realized I didn't have any in my church. Had 50 people. None of them were church builder quality kind of people. Got to where for the next few months, every time I went to knock on somebody's door recommended, I drove up in the driveway and evaluated them. I wonder if these are church builder kind of people. And then fortunately I had an experience with one such family that I determined was not church builder. I've shared the story with you a number of times. And when I left that house that day and pulled down the side of the road, I had one of those life-changing moments. And I just threw everything I'd learned in the seminar out the window. We don't look for anybody when we're building or pastoring churches. We don't look for anybody. We don't look for church building kind of people. We don't look for needy people. We're just God's church. And the Lord adds to the church daily such as should be saved. And every Sunday morning, one of our prayers back there with the staff is, Lord, we will love everyone you send through the doors of the church, period. We won't qualify them. We won't judge them. We won't look at them and call them Canaanites. We'll love them. Well, that's a step above Jesus and his disciples. Send away the dog woman, the Canaanite. And so here she knows she's already been insulted by the master. It's not right for me to give to you, people like you, what was meant for a different breed of people. She's already been insulted by him. And now she hears the disciples saying, can we just... Which one? Give me a mic. I can't wrestle this all day. This one? Huh? And somebody please flag my aging memory this week to go buy another microphone. Are we on? Am I on? Okay. So she's already been insulted by Jesus. And now she hears his disciples saying, can we just get rid of this woman? Please let us send her away. And in spite of that insult, and in spite of her not being welcomed and wanted, I don't know if I'd have this courage. I don't know if you would. But in spite of that, this woman still walks up to Jesus and kneels down in front of him and says, Lord, help me. She knew, insult or not, there's no place else she can go. Approved or not, there's no one else to turn to. And Jesus' response is what still kind of mystifies us. He said, with her begging, Lord, she's knelt, help me. And he says, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And then her response still mystifies me. Yes, Lord, Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Two things about her that are remarkable to me. One is that she had such a humble acceptance of the insult. Isn't that fascinating? I don't know about you, but I mean, you heard Allison talk about her temper at ball games. That's why I hadn't been to one of Hudson's ball games in 2 years. I can't go back. Well, I'm not going to anymore because his mother is out of control. I can only imagine his mother at a government office like I have to go to occasionally and stand in line and get talked to rudely. You get a number over there and sit down. We'll call you whenever we're ready for you. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Not her. I've been here for an hour and a half. No, that would start at 10 minutes. I've been here for 10 minutes. This woman has been insulted. And disciples have publicly said, can we just get rid of her? And she has fallen on her knees. Lord, help me. And he said, I can't give you what was meant for kids. I can't give it to dogs. What an acceptance of who she was. She didn't care. She didn't argue about her position. She didn't say, well, look, I can't help where I was born. I can't help my DNA. It's not my fault that I was born a Canaanite. She didn't argue. She just accepted it. When she said, Lord, even dogs get the crumbs, she's accepted her low rank, her low position. And then her grateful acceptance of any help, just anything, just help. Just any help. You understand what I'm saying? Crumbs. She didn't say, oh, Lord, please give me. She just said, Lord, even the dogs get crumbs. I'm a dog. I'll just take a crumb. You got it? It's important to make sure you get this story before we really get into this sermon. Because Christ's response to her was this. He said, oh woman, Canaanite, dog woman. But he said, oh woman, he said, great is your faith. And then just as simply, be it done as you desire. And the Bible says her daughter was healed instantly. In that moment. Now get it? Get the story. She's still the dog. She's still the low class. She's still the low class Canaanite woman. He's still the master. All that's happened here is the master let a crumb fall off the table for the dog, and she has merely received a crumb. That's the story. Make sure you get it before we go further. Just a crumb. Somebody say crumb. So get this. All she got as a dog, because see, I wanted him to correct the story. When she gets so humble and she just accepts her position and she says anything, just give me a crumb. I want him to say, I'm sorry, I was a little rough on you. I might have said some rough stuff. I just want her to fix it. I want her to, hey, I've been preaching to y'all about image and labels. I want her to know who she is. Stand up and make him correct himself. Just tell him, I can't apologize for who I am. And make Jesus say, I'm sorry, I was out of order. But none of that happens. She's a dog, and she gets a crumb. And the beauty of that is, all she got was a crumb. But you know the rest of the story. Her daughter was instantly healed. You got it? With just a crumb. So I read this story, and I love the story. I love it because it's so wrong, and it's so dirty, and it's so ugly. I don't know about you, but for Jesus to call me a dog, that would hurt to the core. Allison led us on a song a while ago. He loves me, oh, he loves me. And now I'm telling you, you're a Canaanite. You're not a child. He came first to the Jew and then to the Gentile, and you're Gentile. You're the goyim, the outcast, wrong breed, other side of the track. Oh, you're beyond that. That's what you and I are. We were not children. We were adopted. We're not of the vine. We were grafted in the vine. You know all the scriptures that describe who you are? You want to argue with it? Or do you want to just say, okay, that's what I am. I'm a goyim. I'm a Gentile. I'm a grafted in vine, not part of the real vine. I'm an adopted child. I have a spirit that cries out, Abba, Father. But I'm not actually blood-born into the lineage. I'm all of that. I don't ask him to give me a solar system, this great master who designed and built everything. I would never sit at his knee and say, give me a plate, name a galaxy after me. He could do that because he's God. I'm content. Just give me a crumb. Just let something fall off of your plate once in a while in my direction. See, the biggest reason you and I sometimes struggle with getting anything from God, she opens the door for an understanding about something that's common to all of us, and that something is because we're unworthy, we really don't have a right to ask God for too much. I don't know about you, but there have been a few times in my life that I've suffered physically, gone through some sicknesses or heart attack and various other things that, have been kind of threatening, and we got a number of folks in church right now going through it, and I hope you're a little better off than I was when I went through a few things, because there's something in me always that it's just like a negative reminder. It's just like, you messed up. You don't deserve anything from God. I find it very difficult sometimes to like to just start praying, just morning or evening, just to start a prayer. I find it almost impossible sometimes to just start talking to God without my first words being, God, forgive me of my sins. The Catholic mantra, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. That's almost in my brain, starting with God, forgive me. I have sinned. And it doesn't matter that it might be sins that have been asked forgiveness for 10,000 times. They're still here. They still settle on me. And they still give me a sense of unworthiness. And because I don't deserve anything from God, why would I expect him to do anything for me? You understand? You get the connection? Okay, she's a dog. She knows it. She's unworthy. But look at her. Just accept her unworthiness. I'm not asking you for a plate. I'll just take, if you just drop a morsel over the edge, that's enough. Because you're God after all. What's a crumb from Jesus? Yeah, I couldn't live on that little French fry my dog gets off my plate. But she can. That's a treat. It's awesome. It's spin around on the floor and wag the tail awesome. That's how awesome a hot French fry is to my little Shih Tzu. Run around, wag the tail, and do it about 3 times and come back and sit at the knee and look. Waiting on another one. Another crumb. I'm not human. I'll never be like you. I can't walk on my back 2 legs. I don't understand this house thing. I can't open doors. I don't try. I just give me a crumb. And that's her. And I find similarities in stories like Matthew 8 and 5 through 13. A centurion at Capernaum, and you probably most of you know this story. He just had a fella in his house, a servant, who was sick. He was bad. He was bad off, and he needed him healed. And somehow this Gentile knew, I don't have any right to ask this Jewish Jesus guy. People are saying he's probably the Messiah. I already know the rumors. He's healed so many people. Good Lord, he fed 5,000 one time and 4,000 another time. This man, I don't care who he is, he could do anything. But I am a Gentile and a soldier on top of that. I have no right to ask him for anything, and I know it. I'm unworthy. Because I'm pretty sure he just came to the Jews. But still, he's got so much power if I just go to him and say, I know I don't deserve anything, and I'm not worthy for you to even come under my roof, and I'm not going to ask you to. I don't want you to go out of your way for me. I'm not asking you to detour from where you're going. I just know that standing right here in the middle of this road, if you just speak it, my servant will be healed. And I don't deserve for you to come step under the roof of my house or to lose any time out of your travel and your day. You understand why? You get the picture and the connection here? He knew he didn't deserve anything from him, and so in his mind, he wasn't asking for a lot. You say he's asking for a servant to be healed. Oh, but he knew who he was talking. His faith was such that he knew this was God. If this is God, if this man can walk up to a tomb and say, Lazarus, and people whisper, no, 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 no. He's been dead 4 days. He stinks. His body's already decomposing. He's 4 days in the tomb. Hush, Jesus. And him just shake him off. Lazarus, come out of there. And a man with grave cloths wrapped around his body comes walking out, shaking the cobwebs out of his head. I don't ask him for that. That's for the children. I just want to interrupt him for a moment on the road and say, Master, if you just throw me a crumb. Don't come to my house. Don't lose an hour of your day. I'm not worthy of anything extra. But if you just speak the word. That's a story. Just say the word. And Jesus said, I hadn't found faith like this anywhere. In fact, he went on to say, hey, when the children pull their feet up under the table in the kingdom to come, men like this, they're going to be sitting down with Abraham, Isaac, not the children, men like this. And then he said, go and let it be done. And when he got home, somebody told him the hour in which his servant had been healed. And it was that moment he was standing on the side of the road, and a crumb fell off the master's table. And he grabbed that crumb. Just a crumb. You got it today? See, last week I talked to you about your image and reminding yourself who you are. Today I'm just tearing that down. I'm going to tell you you're a dog. You're a Gentile. You're not ever going to amount to anything. You're not the first reason he came to die. You're the secondary ones. You're the outcast. You're the one he had to graft into the vine, had to slit it and poke you in there. You're the one that you're adopted. You weren't natural born to his cause. You were added in. Don't you come before the master and act like you deserve anything from him. But don't ever forget how powerful his crumbs can be when they fall off his table. I knew a broken man once, and one of the great experiences, one of the great acquaintances I've been privileged to make in my life. He came into the church, the first church I was pastoring, and he came after I started preaching, and he left right as I finished. And I was trying to build a church. Remember the church building kind of people. And so I grabbed an usher at the back, and I said, did anybody get that guy's name? He came in after I got up to preach. He left as soon as I had everybody stand. And no, he didn't. I said he was crying like a baby. His heart had to be touched. I want somebody to, if he comes again, grab him. And came the next Sunday. And he slipped in after I started preaching. And then, as soon as I had everybody stand, he slipped out. I grabbed an usher. Did you get him? No, he left too. I don't care what you have to do if he ever comes again. The man was bawling again. Get that man. I need to find out what's going on. And so the next Sunday or so, he was there. Came in after I started preaching. I looked at one of the ushers. I gave the usher an eye. And they went back toward the back so they could catch him when he left. And of all things, he stayed. He bawled again and he stayed. And then he came up and said, I'd like to meet you sometime this week. Is there any chance you could just meet me at McDonald's or somewhere for breakfast? And I said, absolutely. So I met him that week, and he had a great story. And I'm not going to tell you his whole story because it's not relevant to my story today, but I will tell you that he was a broken man. He was a truck driver. And without getting into all the details of his life, I will tell you that his marriage was crumbling, and it hadn't worked like he thought it should work, and he felt like his wife hated him, and he had in fact given her some reasons. Just one of those kind of deals, you know, when none of y'all's husbands did this, but some of us men, we actually had to lie to a woman to get her to marry us. And he was one of those. You know, he had to talk about how much he had and what he could do and how well off he was to get a woman to marry him, and then he found out it was all a lie. And he didn't have anything, and he was a hard-working man, but he had kind of, you know, been a in-control kind of man, and he kind of painted a wrong picture of his wealth, and so his wife had pretty much in his brain, she had disrespected him and dishonored him, and it had never gotten any better. And now he's got a teenage son, and he and his wife have rocked through 12, 15 years of rocky relationship, grieving and hurting, and he trying to be a good man, he finally decides. The waitress flirts with him at a truck stop all the time, and this time he flirted back. And when he flirted back, they get a hookup lined up. When he comes back through on his return route, he and she are going to get a hotel room, and they're going to hook up. And he's going to, for the first time in his marriage, cheat on his wife, and he's justified it because she has withheld herself and her love from him for a long, long time. And they haven't had any love between them, and it hasn't been good, and it hasn't been intimate. And so somehow or another, he justifies it all in his brain. It all works out. And then he gets in his truck and pulls out. On one hand, excited about the prospect of what's going to happen when he comes back. And he buys a little temporary love and passion. And on the other hand, a little guilty and dirty for what he knows he's planning to do and how it would devastate his wife if she knew. And he gets in that truck and he pulls up on the freeway, and before he gets completely on the ramp on the freeway, a blinding light hits his truck. And I'm listening to all this story unfold at McDonald's and breakfast, and that's a pretty cool story so far. And then he says, blinding light just came rushing right into my windshield, and then it filled my cab. And I didn't know how I knew. I just knew it was God. And he said, the amazing thing is, the presence of God condemned me. I saw my worthlessness. I knew what a lousy creep I was. I knew, in his word, I was a dog. But at the same time, there was some comfort because I thought, dog or not, he's at least talking to me. My cab is filled with his presence. And as low a dog as I believe I am, I was comforted because I thought, how many dogs can say he talked to them? He's talking to me. He's telling me the secrets of my soul. He's telling me I can't do what I've got planned. I cannot let this happen. I have a son. I have a wife. I have obligations. I just left God out. And he said, finally the visit was over, and it only took a moment in my eyes. The light was gone, and I'm holding the wheel, and I'm driving, and there's an exit sign, and I realized I have driven 45 miles. I thought it was only a moment, and I'm 45 miles down the road. Now, at this point in 1973, I just rolled my eyes and thought, oh, God, it was such a good story. And now he slipped into cuckoo land. and I have one of those non-church building cuckoos on my hand. I can't believe this story, largely because it's nothing like that's ever happened to me. And if I've never experienced it, why would you experience it? Why does God like you more than He likes me? If I have not experienced it, it probably didn't happen in your life. That's how close God and I are. I know it's silly, but it's amazing how we get that stuff cluttered in our head. And so I'm sitting there kind of writing this guy off. I don't know if he really believes that story or not. 45 miles driving, I don't know. And then he says, it was when I came back home, I didn't go back there. I went straight home. And then I made the mistake of, I kind of told my wife what had happened. Now, I know you ladies don't get it. You men get it. You men would automatically think that if something like that happened to you, you'd come home and tell your wife, I was going to cheat on you and have an affair, and God blinded me in a truck. And you think your wife's going to love you because you told her, oh my gosh, I'm so glad God got you, and I'm sorry we hadn't had a great relationship, and I'm going to love you. No. No, you ever tell your wife, I was this close to cheating on you, but God, and your wife, oh, really? And so if God hadn't stepped in with some miraculous thing, what would you have done? What if God doesn't ride with you tomorrow? You lowlife Canaanite. And the result was that this wonderful miracle happened to him. And he told his wife. And by the time she was through, he was even worse a dog than he had been before. In fact, I can tell you, she didn't show up at church with him. He said, I just started going to church. He said, I have to go by myself, but he said, I started going to church, and he said, honestly, Pastor, all I was hoping to do was find that feeling again. I just wanted to feel that presence of God. I just wanted to believe God was. And so he said, I visited this church, I visited that church, I visited that church, and I'm just like, I don't, maybe I didn't feel God. I was going to quit. And he said, I drove by this corner the other day, a few weeks ago, and I saw this little church, and I got nothing to lose. It's a little podunk startup, but I'm just going to go in there. And he said, so that's why I came in late. I hung around the parking lot till I heard you preaching. I just slipped in. And he said, I'm sorry. I can't tell you what you preached the last few weeks, because the minute I walked in and sat down on the back row, he sat down beside me. And I felt that presence I felt in my truck, and that's why I probably just bawled all through the last few sermons, because I never heard anything you said. I just felt him. And so I told my wife and my son this week, I found a place that we have to go. And my son's going to come. I don't know if my wife will. She didn't. Man was a dog. He had almost failed her once, and then the retelling of it was like failing her anyway, and she somehow couldn't let him off the hook. I can't even remember what she looks like. He came regularly. His teenage high school boy came. I baptized him. I was so proud. I was so grateful for him. But I was even prouder when the high school boy had a catastrophe at school. It was such a unique moment. His high school son went to school with a headache one morning. And he had tried to get an aspirin or two out of the medicine cabinet at home, but and he'd taken them, but he got in the first period and the headache was still bothering him bad. So he told one of the boys in Rockwall High School about his headache, and one of the boys was a little ne'er-do-well punk who just happened to have a pocket full of Valiums from his mother's stash that he tried to sell to boys at school now and then. And so just on a lark, he just said, yeah, I got an aspirin here, take one of these, or take two, they're small. And so in the first period, this boy took 2 Valiums. And in the second or third period, he ran across this boy again, and he said, you still got your headache? And he said, man, I do. I mean, I feel kind of weird, but I got a headache. He said, well, take 2 more. And they gave him 2 more Valiums. Now he told his buddies what he had done, and so they were all having sport with him because he was getting a little loopy. by fourth period. And they gave him 2 more. And so by the time they go to lunch, he's had at least 6 Valium. And then at lunch, they give him a couple of more. Come on, it'll go away. It'll go. By this time, he's groggy enough he can't even understand what he's taking. He just takes it, and they hide him from a couple of classes so the teacher can't see how bad off he is. And then they go to auto mechanic shop. And by the time they get to auto mechanic, the boys never were able to tell the police exactly how many Valiums he had taken. They estimated maybe 12 Valiums. And in auto mechanic shop in the high school, the boys are just having fun at this groggy, barely standing up kid that they have drugged out of his mind. And one of them just picks up a little vial of amber gasoline-colored stuff and says, "You probably need some orange juice," never thinking that he could snatch it out of their hand and drink it. They wouldn't have let him. It was battery acid of some kind that they use in that shop or something, and he just chugged it and threw it back. And instantly, he started bleeding and burning and smoldering and fell on the floor, collapsed unconscious and pouring blood out of his mouth. And they got an ambulance out, and they rushed him to a hospital in Garland, and then they contacted his dad. The boy lay in the hospital for 36 hours. They first said, "Well, we can't tell you what we're going to be able to do because right now we don't know the condition." Told the daddy that. We're just waiting 12 hours because the acid has eaten his throat, and it has undoubtedly eaten the esophagus for a little ways down. We don't know how much liquid was in the vial, how far down the damage is. We need to literally pump his stomach to get the drugs out of his stomach, but we dare not put anything down his throat because it will rupture. It'll go through the wall. There's nothing to hold it and guide it. So right now, all we can tell you is your son is still unconscious, and we're kind of glad if he wakes up, we'll probably put him back to sleep because he's not going to be able to do anything. We're not going to be able to put anything down his throat, and we don't even want him trying to talk. He's not going to be able to talk, and then he's going to panic because his throat is pretty much destroyed. In 12 hours, nothing had changed. They're siphoning blood out of his throat as carefully as they can. Nurse never left his side. And the doctor stalled off 12 more hours, and that's why I know it was 36 hours. 3 times we got 12 hours. Somewhere in that third shift of 12 hours, and the doctor just saying, "Right now, all we're trying to do is keep the boy floating. We're just trying to keep him alive. He's unconscious. He's hemorrhaged badly. The esophagus has to be destroyed. We can't even go in there and look right now." I mean, honestly, all we're doing right now is just trying to monitor him while the drug, we're giving him a few things in his arm to just get this drug neutralized as much as we can. But that's right now, that's it. We don't know. We don't have much good news to give you. He's not going to be able to talk when he finally does wake up, and we may well try to put him to sleep for a while until we can see what to do. And the daddy, the dog whose wife still doesn't talk to him, never showed up at the hospital, by the way. I never saw the mother of the boy come to the hospital. She was so broken over the marriage and so angry at her bad husband. He'd hurt her too many times for her to even come to her own son's hospital room. And the daddy called me and said, "Could you come back to the hospital?" And I said, okay. I'd been up there several times with him. Nurses never left the room. I don't know if it affects everybody the same way, but I don't like seeing anybody beg. Begging rubs me the wrong way. I don't want anybody begging me for anything. I don't beg very well. And I don't like seeing anybody humiliated and put in the spot of feeling like they have to beg. But Billy became a beggar in the hospital, not for himself, for his son. Reminiscent of the Canaanite woman in the hospital room in the presence of nurses, 2 of whom hardly ever left. There's always one in there.
in the presence of them, with the door open, not caring who could hear, the father of this boy said, Pastor, I don't deserve anything from God, and I know that. And I've messed up my life so bad, and I know that. I don't know anything to do but beg God for mercy for my son. If I get on my knees on this side of the bed, would you get on your knees on that side and just reach your arms around his... There's no scripture for that. It's a little awkward. Hospital room, on your knees, reaching over, the daddy's arms reaching over. I accommodated him. I did what he wanted me to do. I knelt down. I reached over. He reached across. He grabbed my arms. We held. And then he starts his prayer. And I'm telling you, I haven't heard a grown man beg like I heard him beg that day. Please, God. Please, God. I know I messed up. I know I ruined my marriage. I know my son can't even respect me. I know I don't have any friends. I know I waited too late in life to even turn to you. I know I'll never amount to anything. I can't even promise you, God, that I could ever pay you back. I just don't know anything to do, God. I'm begging you, please. I'm begging you. I know you can. I know you made everything. I know you brought the dead back to life. I know you're going to resurrect us all. I know you can. And I know I don't deserve it. And I know you don't have to. I'm just begging you, please. 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 Just let a crumb fall. I'm not asking you for anything for me ever. I'll never ask you for anything for me ever again. You don't have to fix anything else in my life. I want to ask you for me or my wife. I'm just asking for my boy today. Just let a morsel fall for my son. And that was it. Man, talk about a hard prayer. Nurses were bawling in the room. We stood up. Nothing changed on the boy. Daddy had begged. As humble and transparent as I've ever heard anyone beg. His daddy begged. Beg God. Beg him like a beggar. Beg like you would if you knew you were a dog. If you were unworthy. And that was it. I hugged him. He cried. I hugged the nurses. They cried. I cried. I left. I got in the car. I cried all the way back home. I begged God a time or two in the car. I don't even know how it must have felt in that room. The nurse was working on something and looking at monitors, and the doctors had already told us the boy may never speak. We don't know the extent. We can't even get in there and poke and prod. The esophagus and throat have to be so burned by the acid, and so he's still bleeding, and there's nothing we can do. That's what they had said 36 hours ago. And the nurse was fiddling with a monitor and putting a bag up, and somebody said, "I'm thirsty." And she turned around to see if it was the daddy who might have come in the room and said, "I'm thirsty." And it was the boy. Sitting up in the bed, looking at the nurse, puzzled, said, "I'm really thirsty." And she said, "What?" And she screamed. I'm not kidding. They said she ran out in the hallway and screamed for the doctor who happened to be on that floor. And everybody assumed the boy had died. And the doctor came out of another room down the hall and ran down to Billy Jr.'s room because he assumed for the nurse to be screaming that the boy was dead. And the doctor walked into the room, saw this boy sitting there puzzled, looking at everybody, and he said, "I'm kind of hungry." And the doctor said, well, open up and let me look at your throat. He said, what happened? He said, well, just let me. And he opened, and the doctor stuck a little piece of wood down there and depressed the tongue and shook his head. And he said, you feel like you could eat something? He said, I'm hungry. The doctor turned around. To this time, Dad and 3 or 4 nurses have come running back in the room. And the doctor just shook his head and he said, the boy said he was hungry. Somebody go across the street and get him a Whataburger from Whataburger. The boy's hungry. And the doctor walked out shaking his head. And a nurse said, are you serious? He said, I'm dead serious. I can't see anything wrong in there. Go get a burger. Let's just monitor him and see what happens. They walked across the street, got him a burger and a Coke, brought it back, and he ate the hamburger and he drank the Coke. Because he had a crumb. Oh, I don't want you to miss the whole point of this sermon today. I know you don't ever ask God for a lot because you don't deserve it. I know you sinners, you ain't got me fooled. You low-life, lying, backstabbing, fornicating, adultering, you nasty people. You don't deserve anything from God. The heart of man, the Bible says, is wonderful. No, it doesn't. It says the heart of man is continually evil. You know who you are. You know you don't deserve anything. I didn't come in today to change your image of yourself. Today I came in to leave you as a dog and to tell you that even the dogs get a crumb. But boy, if you ever get a crumb from the master's table. Clifford, I don't think you got a whole plate. I just think you got a little morsel. But it was good to hear you ring the bell from just a crumb. He didn't name a solar system after you. He just gave you a crumb. A little boy's daddy begged like a dog, please, master, I'm not deserving. I won't ask you for anything for me, my wife, my marriage. I'll never ask you for anything else if you just give me this. That's a beggar, knowing his place. And I don't think he got a lot that day. I just think he got a crumb. It didn't change his marriage. I don't guess his wife ever loved him. He's probably dead by now. Another one of those sad stories of no romance and no love. But one day, from one begging, you see, the point I'm trying to make today is crumbs heal the sick. Just crumbs. Crumbs deliver the oppressed. Crumbs resurrect the dead. Crumbs stop the storms. Crumbs can make you walk on water. You know why I say it that way? Because I put some illustrations up here, just these little phrases. I'm telling you, you got to go back and look at them sometime. Jesus makes a comment to his disciples, and he says something about, hey, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And they're like, oh, no, I bet he's hinting to us we forgot to bring bread. And he turns around and says, man, you guys of little faith. You guys don't amount to much, do you? You got no faith. And he just reminded her, don't you remember when I fed 5,000 and we had 5 loaves left over? How about the 4,000 I fed? We had 7 loaves left over that time. Why do you think I'm talking to you about bread today? And then you read it and you realize, oh my Lord, he fed 5,000 people with men who doubted. That was just a crumb he dropped. Because they only had a little faith. Peter, remember Peter? I don't know why. He wasn't bright. He wasn't. He was a fisherman. You fishermen know you don't have to be smart to throw a hook in the water and catch it. And now I'm trying to think, who's here besides Jeff and the Chadwicks that are fishermen? I don't know. But whoever else I offended, Peter wasn't that bright. And the reason I say he wasn't bright is, look, if I'm in a boat and a ghost is walking toward me, and somebody said, I think that's Jesus. The last thing I'm going to say, if you're Jesus, I'm going to swing my legs out here. You tell me to walk on water. That's the stupidest thing. But that's what Peter said. If you're Jesus, bid me come to you. And Jesus said, okay, come on. And he swung his legs over the boat and he walked on water. And then, it's waving and windy and then the Bible says, and he saw where he was and realized what he was doing, and then how stupid that must have been. And he started to sink, and Christ picked him up. And Christ, you know what he said to him? Little faith. Hey, I don't know about you. I've tried it in my bathtub a time or two. I can't walk on water. if little faith can walk on water. Give me a crumb. That's all I ask today. And so the message today is simply this, come as you are. Don't come to God with any pretense, and don't act like you're something you're not. And don't ever dare try to tell God that you accomplished something. Remember when I did this, God? And Lord, I need this from you. And remember, I've been serving you for 15. Just come as you are. I'm nothing. I'm Canaanite. Humbly beg. Don't ask you for a plateful. I just ask you for a morsel. Because I know what a crumb from his table can do. Stand, please. Somebody that needs a crumb, say amen. Then here's how you get it, just like she did. Humbly accept your position and be grateful for anything he gives. Because if he just gives a crumb. I've told the story of Billy before, and I've had a couple of people say, do you really think it was that bad? Oh, I don't know. Doctors tend to lie a lot. I can only go by what doctors said, and the doctors said. And I heard him in my presence telling Dad, he's probably not going to talk. Might not ever. We haven't been able to fully examine because it's so deteriorated from the acid. And then 36 hours later, a doctor depresses a tongue and sees a throat that could probably eat a hamburger. And they got him one. Crumbs. Father, I thank you today. I feel like I'm the luckiest dog in the master's house because I feel like you've slid a lot of crumbs off my direction a lot of times. And I'm content with that. I don't ask you for a plate. I don't ask you for a galaxy. I don't ask you to do fantastic things. I just ask you to get me through from day to day, to solve a crisis now and then that's nothing but the brush off with the back of your hand for me. Remind us how awesome and powerful you are, how majestic, towering you are. The heavens are your throne. The earth is just a footstool for you. How big a crumb must be that falls from your table. We humbly accept we were grafted into your family. You put a spirit in us that simply cries out to our Father by adoption. We know our place today. We're Gentiles saved by the grace of God. Our hearts are continually evil. We cannot boast of our righteousness. But we stand on a promise of you, your word. Even dogs get crumbs from the master's table. Thank you for our crumbs today. Somebody say, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Will you give the Lord a hand of praise today? Thank you, Father. Thank you for your love, your blessing, your favor, your kindness, and thank you for your crumbs in our lives in Jesus' name. Shake hands, hug somebody. Going to the nursing home, they have lunch for you in the back. We'll see you next Sunday morning, 10:30.